How many people do you know these days with a neurological disorder? How many family members or people in your circle of friends have something like fibromyalgia or lupus? How about a brain tumor? Studies in the New England Journal of Medicine show a growing trend in the rate of such disorders in recent years. I also became a statistic when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. It was the summer of the Great Fire in Tucson, Arizona, when I began my research and traveled across this country to find the truth.
And again, it's this variability in your sensitivity to toxins. Some people may notice very little, if anything. A majority of people will have one of a number of symptoms, because we know that the aspartame, because it is a poison that affects protein synthesis, because it affects how the synapse operates in the brain, and because it affects DNA, can affect numerous organs. So you can get a lot of different symptoms that seem unconnected.
You know it as NutraSweet. It's in just about everything. Soft drinks, iced tea, hot chocolate, tabletop sweetener, chewing gum, cereal, pudding, ice cream, cookies, even breath mint and children's vitamins.
Donald Rumsfeld went into the company after he left Washington, after Ford lost, and that would be in 1977. Is in business, and he was the congressman from there. And then he went to the White House, where he was White House Chief of Staff, and then he became the Secretary of Defense. He took over this company, and it was going down the tubes completely. It had FDA investigations. It had grand jury investigations. It was losing money. Its stock was down. A person was hired to come in and explain why the FDA was so down on it. And he went in with a full team of politicians. He went in with himself, a politician. He brought his special assistant, who was a Republican Party operative, worked with the Republican National Committee, brought in a press guy from there, brought in lawyers, and they took on the issue of this company as a political issue.
Aspartame or aspartame, 200 times more sweet than sugar, and it is lethal stuff. They actually tell American Air Force pilots not to drink soft drinks because it affects their ability to fly. Why? Because of the aspartame in it. It's now more and more in foods of all kinds. And they even have aspartame disease. It is a mind suppressant among many other things. Hey, who was the man who brought aspartame to the world by manipulating the authorities in America by putting people who supported him and his aspartame policies in positions of power to make that decision and removing those that would not? Oh, aspartame man, Donald Rumsfeld, who was put in to sell pharmaceuticals in America using his contacts in the Reagan-Bush administration to get aspartame permission to be used in food against all the independent data. Then who did he sell out to for $12 million of his own money? Monsanto, who now run the show.
We're developing a society because of all of these different toxins known to affect brain function. We're seeing a society that not only has a lot more people of lower IQ, but a lot fewer people of higher IQ. In other words, a dumbing down, a chemical dumbing down of society. So everyone's sort of mediocre. That leaves them dependent on government because they can't excel. We have these people of lower IQ who are totally dependent. Then we have this mass of people who are going to believe anything they're told because they can't really think clearly. And very few people of very high IQ who have good cognitive function who can figure this all out. And that's what they want. So, you can kind of piece it together as to why they are so insistent in spending so many hundreds of millions of dollars of propaganda money to dumb down society.
an artificial sweetener, an additive, and it's a chemical. It's not a natural product, it's a chemical. The molecule is made up of 3 components. 2 are amino acids, the so-called building blocks of protein. One is called phenylalanine, which is about 50% of the molecule. And the other is aspartic acid, which is like 40%. The other 10% is a so-called methyl ester, which as soon as it gets swallowed, becomes free methyl alcohol, methanol, wood alcohol, which is a poison, a real poison.
Developing a society because of all of these different toxins known to affect brain function. We're seeing a society that not only has a lot more people of lower IQ, but a lot fewer people of higher IQ. In other words, a dumbing down, a chemical dumbing down of society. So everyone's sort of mediocre. That leaves them dependent on government because they can't excel. We have these people with lower IQ who are totally dependent. Then we have this mass of people who are going to believe anything they're told because they can't really think clearly. And very few people of very high IQ who have good cognitive function who can figure this all out. And that's what they want. So, you can kind of piece it together as to why they are so insistent in spending so many hundreds of millions of dollars of propaganda money to dumb down society.
You know it as NutraSweet. It's in just about everything. Soft drinks, iced tea, hot chocolate, tabletop sweetener, chewing gum, cereal, pudding, ice cream, cookies, even breath mints and children's vitamins. Odds are, aspartame is part of your diet. But should it be?
It should be withdrawn from the market.
Look at this, a summary of nearly 10,000 complaints filed with the Food and Drug Administration since 1980 by people just like Edith Johnson.
I was horrified, I was panic-stricken, I was perspiring, I was scared to death on that night.
Edith says she'll never forget it.
Within a matter of moments, I went completely blind. I could not see anything.
Edith was drinking a cup of low-calorie hot chocolate that night. Aspartame made it sweet. And Johnson says aspartame made her sick.
All of a sudden, I couldn't see. My eyes went out of focus, and it was like my vision became quite blurred.
And you think it's because of aspartame?
I think it's very deliberately because of aspartame, yes.
It was terrifying.
Kate Randall thought she was going crazy.
I started popping in my hands and twitching in my feet, my legs, my knees, my upper legs, and shoulders and arms and everywhere.
Like millions of Americans, Kate Randall was a Diet Coke drinker, a big one.
9 Diet Cokes a day.
For how long?
5 years. Every day. Every day.
Kate Randall isn't the only one who believes NutraSweet is dangerous. Dozens of web pages warn against the ill effects of aspartame. One of them is supported by this man, Dr. H.J. Roberts, a private physician and author of several articles and books on aspartame.
Somebody has got to put this out and say, be careful.
Roberts calls aspartame an ignored epidemic.
Is that I have over 1,300 in my own database that people have terrible reactions to products containing aspartame.
Dr. Olney, do you think that aspartame should be on the market today?
No,
Why not?
because it hasn't been demonstrated to be safe.
Dr. John Olney is a researcher at Washington University in St. Louis.
I fed aspartame to infant mice and found that it produced the same kind of brain damage. That it indicates that if there's an adverse effect, a serious adverse effect in the animals, and if that adverse effect is absolutely proven in the animal research, then it should not be approved for human use.
Dr. Olney took his findings to the Food and Drug Administration as Cero, the company that developed aspartame, pushed to get the new sweetener to market. The FDA looked at the research and in 1975 put aspartame's approval on hold. It set up an independent panel of doctors to study aspartame. In 1980, that public board of inquiry unanimously ruled aspartame should not go on the market.
We had a major responsibility to evaluate.
Dr. Vernon Young from MIT is the only surviving member of the board of inquiry.
Our conclusion was that on the basis of the evidence presented at that time, we weren't able to assure ourselves of the safety of aspartame in that particular context, and that we advised the need for additional studies.
They had some concerns about it and felt that there should be additional animal studies done before it was approved.
Dr. Jerry Goyen was the FDA commissioner then.
I looked at that, read it at the time, obviously, and said that, well, what we had to do next was set up an internal committee of people who had played no part in previous studies of aspartame.
But Goyen never had the chance to review the results. That's because he was forced to step down in 1981, when newly elected President Ronald Reagan appointed a new commissioner. That commissioner quickly approved the use of aspartame for dry foods like cookies and pudding mix. Just 2 years later, he okayed it for carbonated drinks. We tracked down that FDA commissioner, Dr. Arthur Hall Hayes.
Hi, Dr. Hayes.
Yes?
My name's Aline Sardani with Fox 5 in Washington.
Yes.
Can we ask you a few questions about aspartame?
FDA has all the information you need.
Yes, but sir, you were the FDA commissioner when aspartame was approved, and so we'd like to ask you a few questions.
No, I really have no comments. All the information is available to Food and Drug Administration.
Sir, don't you think it's your responsibility as the FDA commissioner when aspartame was approved to answer some of our questions?
Not now. I'm no longer commissioner of the FDA.
Do you think the public was ever put at risk? Sir, was the public ever put at risk? Sir, do you think he put the public at risk, sir?
Yes, I do.
Senator Howard Metzenbaum has his own concerns.
I can say that I was dissatisfied with the manner in which aspartame was approved.
So Senator Metzenbaum requested a review of the FDA's approval process.
I have a kind of recollection of it that sort of left a bad taste in my mouth. And it wasn't from aspartame.
To understand the senator's concerns, you have to realize what this little blue packet is really worth. Searle sells millions of dollars of aspartame each year. It's used in nearly 6,000 products, including Diet Coke. Searle Cyril had a vested interest in keeping aspartame on the market, and the American public had a craving for a calorie-free sweetener.
It was a big public issue. It was a matter of considerable publicity and public attention.
Between my first and second seizures, I asked my neurologist about aspartame and a possible link to seizures.
The Senate's public hearings took place in 1987, but nothing came of Metzenbaum's worries. The committee decided not to request more studies and left aspartame on the market. So Fox 5 obtained these campaign contribution records. They show that Cyril made contributions to several senators involved in keeping aspartame on the market. Senator Howell Heflin received at least $5,000. Cyril also contributed at least $3,000 to Senator Orrin Hatch. Senator Robert Byrd got $1,000, and Representative Henry Waxman also received a $1,000 contribution. And that's not all. We also learned that several federal officials were investigated for possible ties to Cyril.
I think the chairman of the FDA wound up in having some sort of economic relationship beneficial to himself with Cyril Manufacturing, who at that time owned the rights to aspartame. The issue is really not an issue of science, it's an issue of politics.
The Monsanto webpage links sites belonging to the American Diabetes Association and the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. Both organizations have published articles supporting NutraSweet. Monsanto does not mention its large contributions to both nonprofit groups.
Not enough is known about NutraSweet.
Edith Johnson just wants the FDA to order more studies. So do the hundreds of people who continue to file complaints. So many, the Department of Health and Human Services has identified 91 symptoms by complainants attributed to aspartame use. The number one reported symptom is headaches. Some of the other most reported symptoms are dizziness, mood changes, nausea, and stomach pain.
Absolutely, I think the FDA should revisit this issue.
But for now, the FDA has no plans to revisit the issue. The agency wouldn't even designate someone to speak with us on camera. But FDA officials did recently speak with members of the Aspartame Consumer Safety Network. James Turner and Mary Stoddard say they've been trying for years to convince the FDA that aspartame should be taken off the market, but their most recent attempt failed.
They barely acknowledge the possibility that some people may be harmed. Their basic position is that in everything they've looked at, all the data has come in, and there's nothing, zero, that suggests to them that there's any problems.
The Food and Drug Administration maintains aspartame is safe, but that's no comfort for Edith Johnson.
You are talking with a very angry lady. I am furious today. They had no right to market it. My message to people is drink water. You don't need aspartame in your life.
It's everywhere. Try walking down one aisle in the grocery store without finding aspartame in something. Is it safe? Should it have ever been approved? That all depends on who you ask.
What would you like to tell people about aspartame? Avoid it.
FDA representatives would not speak to us on camera, but they did send us this statement. In it, the agency stands behind its decision. The statement then goes on to say the FDA remains ready to act if it receives what it considers to be credible scientific evidence. But until then, NutraSweet will remain on the shelves of your grocery store. Reporting live, Aline Sergani. Now back to you, Tracy.
Well, very interesting report there, Aline. Thank you.